I want to go to Brandon first, my friend. That is 2 defeats on the bounce. A shocking performance. Talk to us, bro.
I feel like Declan Rice. Hey.
What can we say? What can we say, Tel? I'm fucking fed up now. And I'm glad you talked for about 20 minutes before bringing the panel out, because I was fuming. Absolutely fuming. So it's given me a little bit of time to calm down. But where do we start? First of all, last game against West Ham, we're all sitting here complaining about the players, and we could basically, put my interview that I did with you against after the West Ham game on repeat again when it comes to the players. But today, I'm looking dead in the eyes of Mikel Arteta, and what on earth is he doing in terms of his man management during the game today? Once again, we're going to discuss about how we haven't learned from mistakes that we made last season. And that comes not only to the players, but this fucking manager as well, Tel. We got cooked by a 35-year-old Willian today. 35-year-old Willian, right? Deemed not good enough for us. Cool. Cooks Ben White all game. Yeah. In terms of our front line, non-existent once again, and people will sit there and go, oh, well, it's not Mikel's fault. He tried to do something different because he played Eddie Nketiah today. He played Kivior today. What? Just because he played a couple of different personnel means that it's completely different. We did exactly the same thing today as what we did against West Ham. Nothing different. Yeah. Ultimately, it becomes a point where you have to start questioning the manager now, because it didn't work against West Ham. Cool. For the first 45 minutes of this game today, you could see it is not working. Do something different, Mikel, right? And you pointed it out perfectly, Tel. Why are players not going on the outside? Why? Because the manager wants them to do exactly what they're doing on the pitch. Oh, Saka, cut inside. If you can't play a pass, play it backwards. We'll recycle the ball and start again, rather than taking risks. Do you know what I mean? It's absolute bullshit. The performances that we are seeing right now from these players are simply not good enough, but a lot of it has to come down to this manager and the way that he's setting up. And, individuals can do a lot better, but I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking, Saka isn't this bad. Martinelli's not this bad. Jesus is not this bad. Declan Rice for definite is not this bad. Why are we seeing so many poor performances on the pitch? Why?
Maybe you just overrated them, Brandon. Sorry, maybe you just overrated these players. Man.
You say that. You say that, Don, right? You say that, Don, right? You say that, right? But these players showed last season that they can perform to a higher standard than what they are showing right now. And it's not just one player. If it's one player, you can sit there and say, okay, you can blame the individual. But when there's a collective, collective performance from every single player on the pitch that is simply not of the level, like today, defending again, we was all sitting there saying about Zinchenko and how he costs us defensively. Kivior's exactly the same. Why was Kivior not in the right place at that first goal? Why? Because he's inverting into the midfield. Why is he inverting into the midfield? Because that's exactly what the manager wants him to do. And the thing is, again, he gets his substitutions wrong. Eddie Nketiah, why did he stay on the pitch for 95 minutes? He offered absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I know we're limited. In terms of options and stuff like that. And we need to go out in January and address certain positions and situations. Hang on a minute, yeah? Right? But if I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, cool. But I'm watching exactly the same thing unfold this season as what happened last season. The only difference is it's January and not fucking March. So I'm thinking, okay, cool, we need a striker. Maybe we need a new manager as well, because he's clearly not good enough to get us over the line.
Brandon, I hear what you're saying there. Ded, you were about to say something, bro.
Yeah, no, because obviously me and Brandon, we did a show earlier in the year on his channel. People go and check it out, where I told Brandon to his face that you guys need a striker, and he was shaking his bum violently on his own channel when he told me, well, Man City won the league without a striker, and we've got Martinelli and Saka. And Brandon, I'm glad that you're nodding your head. And I said, mate, last season was a freak season for Arsenal fans shaking their bum, and now what it is we're seeing your true colours. That's what it is, bro. Your true colours. And I said that last season, a lot of your players overperformed. You can have that overperformance in your players. And so this Arteta out, this and that, and the violin, I'm not really having it. I think you got to give him time and let your players cook. But yes,
give him time, Dej. Don't wind me up, Deji.
Trust the process.
Deji, do not do this, my friend. Don't try and wind me up about give him time. He's had 4 years. He's had £700 million. There's no more give him time. It is win now or fuck off. Simple as, right? We're not messing around no more. There's no more time for this, right? And yeah, okay, cool. I admit that I come on and I was, talking about Man City and how they won the league without the striker. We had Saka, we got Martinelli, we got Saka, we got Odegaard, who was performing last season, coming up with the goods and that, right? And it's clear to see we're not seeing the same levels from them players this season, right? But having said all of that, I tried to back my manager and my team this season, right? Because people get on my back about being toxic and negative and all this. I think, cool, all right, he got us in a title race last season. We've had a couple of £100 million spent in the summer of investment. Now it's time to go and win. Okay, cool. The performances haven't been that great, but we're in a position. And now we're folding again. And I'm fed up and sick and tired of seeing ex-Arsenal players perform against us. This is a Fulham side, by the way, that in their last 3 Premier League games have got bopped off the field by Bournemouth. They got bopped off the field at home to Burnley, one of the worst teams in the league, and then bopped against, I can't even remember who the other team was, but it's nobody, decent in this league. It's ridiculous how we got absolutely destroyed and outplayed today. And it comes down to the manager and the players, and they're simply not good enough. And forget the league, because it's not happening. We're a top 4 club, right? But all the fans will be happy with that because we've got Champions League football. And that's all the Cronkies want. And that's all, Arsenal Football Club have ever wanted. As long as we're in the Champions League, it's cool. It's cool. Well, we're going to find out in January, aren't we? But I don't trust this football.
What I would say, right, with Arteta out.
Matt, I'll come to you in a second, mate. I'll come to you in a second. We'll have that conversation. Don, you said something a minute ago about Arsenal being overrated. Explain what you mean by that, man. I don't want to go off that topic.
Yeah, I said their players are overrated. They overrated their players too much, right? I know last year, again, you lot had an amazing season last year, but one thing that I kept banging on about in the summer is Martinelli and Saka are still young players, yeah? And a lot of the teams that you're going to come up against are going to respect you now, yeah? And they know what to expect from a Saka, and they know what to expect from a Martinelli, right? I get what you're saying, Brandon, because there's certain parts of the game, like in-game management, certain guys that are starting, that's on Arteta. But individually, bro, I don't believe Arteta is telling Saka and Martinelli to keep cutting in, right? Because as a winger, he's going to be telling them to stretch the pitch and try beat their man. But what it is with Martinelli and Saka is individually, whether it's the confidence thing, whether it's right now the pressure's getting to them, they're struggling. They're struggling to get past their man. They are struggling to create chances for the attackers right now. Because even Nketiah today, we know he's not a Jesus type player. He can't link up the play as good as Jesus. What he's going to get you is he's a fox in the box. You need him in the box to get in that danger zone and to finish chances. What was Martinelli doing for him today? He wasn't creating nothing for him. Yeah. What was Saka doing today? He wasn't creating nothing for him. Another game today where Saka got a goal and he was crap again. Yeah. And I've been banging on about this for time. You guys know my take on Saka. You know how I feel about him. I think he's a good player. Very, very overrated. And now people want to talk about it because they can clearly see that you're not getting results anymore. You're not getting wins. So the wins aren't papering over mediocre performances. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So it's a bit of both. The manager, it's the players individually. They haven't been playing well enough. Because even when I look at it today, like Brandon, what would you have done differently if you were Arteta, like in terms of the lineup? Would you have started Jesus and maybe start Tomiyasu, but he just came back from injury? What would you have done differently?
This is part of my problem, right, Don? Because last season, what we did so well in terms of our front three was we was interchangeable. Jesus wasn't always in the middle. He drifted out to the left. He come wide sometimes, created little triangles. Saka did the same thing, come inside and all that. Now it seems like they're very rigid. Like Saka has to be out on the right. Jesus has to be in the middle. Martinelli has to stay out on the left. And they're just not getting into the game in the same way. Do you know what I mean? So I look at the manager for that as well, But then at the same time, what I won't sit there and blame the manager for is defensively, again, like shocking at times. Like we've got to stay switched on. We've been asked to defend a handful of times against West Ham and we concede twice. We've been asked to defend a handful of times today and we concede twice. And it's pathetic defending again.
Saliba as well, man. Talk to me about Saliba. The past few games, he has looked shaky, bro. And I feel like no one's talking about it because you lot put him on a pedestal, on a world-class pedestal, where he hasn't really done anything in football to be put up there.
Compared to Van Dijk as well.
Comparing him to
Romero.
Yeah, but the past few games, he has been shaky. So
Whoever said that?
No, Brandon. I know you're good at criticize your players. Matt, I've got a question for you.
Yeah, so it's all good. I just heard somebody say about Romero, bro. Don't even talk to me.
They compared him to Romero.
Talk to me about Saliba, bro. Talk to me about his performances recently. Because he's been shaky, bro.
I wanted to add to your point about Saka and Martinelli. So from last season, teams went all out against us. So Saka and Martinelli could play their game and just destroy their opponent 1v1 basically. But this season, teams are now respecting us. They've now put 2 players on each wing on Saka and Martinelli. And I think they're struggling to sort of get past 2 players basically. And that's something that they've got to learn. And I'm not making excuses for them, no way, because they've both been atrocious this season. But I think that's what it's come down to, and that they're both quite young, and they've just got to learn to sort of bypass the 2 players.
Just to ask you a question, right? Because I get what you're saying. I completely get what you're saying about 2 players being on Saka, 2 players being on Martinelli. Whose fault's that? You know, like I look at it and I think, can the manager do something different? Rather than having Zinchenko inverting into the midfield all the time, for an example, maybe, you know, make him overlap like traditional fullbacks. If you can see that your 2 most threatening players are getting doubled up on, why are we not got overlapping fullbacks? You know, this is something that the manager has to do.
Striker. Just buy an all-out striker that can get goals that way.
Do you know what I'm going to say, though? I just wanted to say on that as an outsider. This whole doubling up thing, I get it. It's a fair reason. But then that means it should be so much easier for the players in the middle to create, because now suddenly all the players are out on the width. Everybody's struggling, and there's an intensity that's missing from your team.
That's my issue with Odegaard. Because
my thing is more, when I'm watching you play, it's the pressure. The pressure's building up. There's a different pressure on Arsenal this year, and I don't think the longer the season goes on, you're coping with it very well. You're not standing up and saying, you know, you've had an opportunity to get 9 points ahead of Man City at this point. Yes, they would have had a game in hand, and you failed to do it. And at the end of the day, whether people like hearing it or not, that's the absolute truth of the matter. And yes, there's an element of being doubled up on. Yes, there's an element of a player or 2 being off. Yes, you need a new striker. But I'm watching you move the ball today away from home, and you're moving it at a snail's pace. And why do I recognize this? Because I see my team do it week in, week out. And I'm watching it, and everyone's like, the style's changed. No, the application has changed. The style is pretty much the same. I'm not saying you shouldn't tweak the style. I'm not saying there's no room for that conversation. But the lack of intensity, especially these last 2 games. And then what's happening is now your defense is looking shaky. And that hasn't happened all year. And if that defense is shaking and it continues, there's not a catch chance in hell that you can win the league. And that's the standard this year now for Arsenal.
And Terry,
5 points off last year.